distribution of heat from the boiler all the way to the rooms, and we talked about one the simplest way to distribute hot water is to send hot water from the boiler all the way to radiators. And we use two types of radiators, and those are the hot water radiators, and they are sized per foot length. Some radiators are sized per square foot or volume, so you have to be aware of how much BTU is being submitted by each foot or each volume, or what unit of distribution we have for the radiators. So we talk about type A and type B, and we said type A is 3/4, type B is 1/2 inch. The flow rate is different. You want to be between 1 and 4. Any slower than that, and it will be off the design. Any larger than that, and it will be too fast. If it's too fast, it's not going to give up enough heat. If it's too slow, it will give up too much heat. And we estimate a heat drop or temperature drop between inlet and outlet by 20 degrees. We talked also about the pressure drop for each foot. As the water goes through the pipe, it counteracts friction. Where is the friction coming from? The pipe. The pipe has some friction. There's friction inside the pipe because there is some kind of roughness, even though it's very smooth. And water is very sticky. It has viscosity, so it sticks to the wall and it will move slower, and that will slow down the flow. So this is the pressure drop in milli-inch per foot. So for every foot of that radiators, you will lose this much pressure. So it makes sense if you have a very long pipe, you lose a lot of pressure. And we talked about how the temperature inside the water dictate how much heat or how much temperature we put into the room, and that's also based in a room that at 65 degrees. We talked also about the heat loss equation. It's still the same. You lose heat based on the pipe, number of fins, and the water temperature. The more heat you have in the water, the more you will be able to lose to the room. And we had this example. I would say it's a straight look up from the book. It will be very helpful if you can locate your table in the book so you can follow through. And there are a few examples worked out in the book. And we said if we look up that water temperature at 1 GPM, type A at 50 to 550 BTU per foot. So now we know how many feet do we need for that radiator. Any question about that? Does it seem straightforward? Yeah.
The gallons per minute, whether it's between 1 and 4, when do you know if you shoot for 1 and 4?
Whichever is closest to you. So if it's between 2, you can go in the middle, average it. If it's close to 4, go to 4. Again, it's not very, very accurate, but don't go above 4 or below 1. And if it's 3, don't put the 1. It will make a little bit of a difference, not a lot. Any other questions?
If you go back to the table and we have type A, and 1 GPM,
Yeah.
actually it's 1 foot per minute, cubic feet per minute, right?
No.
No?
GPM is different than foot.
It's interchangeable.
That's a different volume. So foot cube per minute is different than GPM. So this is talking about velocity, right? So if you say foot per minute, that's speed. But this is volume, how much you put in there. So they have already calculated the size of the pipe in that equation. That's a good question.
Because 1 gallon is like, 1 cubic foot,
So
7.4
this is
gallons.
3/4 inch. This is 1/2 inch. And we have GPM, which is gallon. Gallon per minute. That's volume, right? This is equals velocity, which is foot per minute, times area of this. And that is foot square, so you get foot cube per minute. And you can convert that gallon per minute.
With what calculator?
So gallon per minute, if you convert one foot cube to a gallon, I think it's,
7.48.
yeah. A gallon is bigger than foot per minute. 7.48 conversion rate. So again, it's just called fluid, but it's volume. Volume per time, not area, not velocity. That's a small distinction. Talking about volume, and we can also talk about mass, but that's different. So we'll stick with volume.
For type A, vehicle 1 and 4, it means like 1 gallon per minute
Yeah.
or 4 gallon per minute,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes. And this is the same thing. 1 gallon per minute, 4 gallon per minute, and this is the pressure drop for each pipe. So if we go with this pipe over here, I'm going to lose pressure. So you know the velocity here, max, the velocity here is 0, almost to 0. I don't wanna, he
There's a
smiles.
whole class
I'm not doing that.
just for this.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So, just so you know. Okay, let's not complicate things, keep them simple. Same example here, we look up the number and we find the number of feet, and if I want to find the pressure, I multiply this number of feet per whatever you find on the table for each foot in milli-inch. A milli-inch is 1,000 of an inch, and that will add up when you have your pump flow. Another example, we did that again. Large living room requires heating load of 12,000 BTU. Could be typical. Type B radiator, I don't know why would you use that, but just like for exercise, it's very small. Is used at 5 GPM, which is very higher than 4, so I'm gonna go with 4 if I have to. Temperature to 10. How long the radiator has to be, and what is the pressure drop at the radiator. So if I go in the book and look up type B,
Question for you.
Yeah.
So all this stuff, when we calculate our pressure drops, when we get our number at the end, that's how much head the pump has to make up
milli-inch,
to give us the heat that we want.
that's one of them. You're gonna add that, you're gonna add elbows. Elbows, you have more pressure drop.
Yep.
Also height, it's gonna be another pump head, we'll talk about that, and also the type of pipe does makes a difference. So here, if you look at type B, 4 is closest to 5, and I'm going with 210. So 780 is what you find that in your book, 780. I put that in here, I got 15.348. I'm gonna go up to the next half a foot, so 15.5. And if I want to find the pressure drop, I will multiply that by 2,880. So it's the pressure drop per foot, milli-inch. Convert that to feet, divided by 12,000, because each milli-inch is 1,000 inch. Each foot is 12 inches. So I got 3.72 feet of head. That's significant. That's a lot of head. So we'll think about that. Any question about this? Does it make sense?
You divide the millions by the BTUs that you had,
No.
that's 12,000.
No, 12,000 is like, this is not different 12,000. It's a conversion between milli-inch to feet. Because every milli-inch is 1,000 inch.
Oh, okay, I see.
And every foot is 12 inches. So you can divide by 1,000 and divide again by 12, and you get the same number. Good? So, basement radiators, also known as fin tubes radiator, run around the walls. Usually, where do you see these?
The windows.
Next to the windows, for two reasons. Because windows is where you lose a lot of heat. And also, usually, underneath the windows, you do not put a lot of furniture, so you have space for the radiator. So this is how they go, and they run around the walls. Some of them are stacked, like two pipes in it. Some of them go back and forth. But again, you want also even distribution, so you try to go as much as possible around the walls, but usually underneath the windows. So in your project, when you're trying to locate those radiators, put them underneath the window. I want you at some point to have a schematic of the floor plan and tell me where did you put those radiators. And if you will draw that schematic, it will look something like that. Let's see, it's your house. So you're gonna go from the bottom here. And that's your radiator. Near the window.
Is there a table in here, with the factors for pressure drop on elbows and stuff like
Yeah.
that? There's,
Yeah. Don't jump the gun, we gotta get to it, slowly. There are many types of radiators, such as king tube radiators, which they go back and forth. Some of them are spirals, and convectors, which it's a big closet looking like appliance with tubes going back and forth. It looks like a car radiator. So your car radiator is emitting a lot of heat, and sometimes there's fans behind the radiator. If you ever looked at the car radiator, and it has different drawers. So did anybody of you before, like, what do you call that? When they make the cars, regular car into racing cars?
what are you getting at?
What is the process when you try to get a old Civic and make it into a racing car?
Tuning it?
No.
Modifying it?
Yeah, modify
Souping
the
it
car.
up?
Huh?
Soup it up.
Yeah. So when you try to get an old Civic and trying to make it really increase the performance, you're gonna change the engine probably, put a sports transmission, blah, blah, blah. If you forget to change the radiator to compensate for the amount of horsepower you're burning, the car will overheat. So you end up changing the radiator to a sports radiator, which probably look thicker, bigger, and you might add 2 new fans. I know somebody who had a muscle car, so they had to add another radiator, so have 2 radiators and 2 fans, switches for the fans, to try to dispense the heat. Otherwise, the engine will overheat. If the engine overheats, it's not going to perform as it's supposed to. So think of the same thing for the house, the heat that you want to get out of your radiators. And again, if you ever had a German car in the 80s, or if you see one on the road, usually you can hear them from the end of the street, because you can hear the fans, because the engines were big, were very big engines, and they had radiators with like a lot of electrical fans in it, so you can hear the fans of the car from a mile away, because they're trying to cool the engine. So cooling is based on how big the radiator is, how much fins you have, and as you have guessed, like when you go wash your car, especially after driving in the highway for a long time, you're gonna find a lot of things stuck in your radiator, a lot of bugs and stuff. If you don't wash that regularly, if it blocks the airflow, you lost radiator performance. So people go with brushes and clean it, which is the same thing that goes on for evaporators and condenser fans. Every time you do a tune-up, you should wash them, salt and water, sometimes in kind of solution, and make sure there's proper airflow to them. If they get dinged and blocked, that will affect the performance. So if you see an AC with a lot of blocked fins, it's not going to perform very well. You have to go with a chisel or a knife and try to like open them up a little bit to permit airflow. So plan the radiator location properly so it's not obstructed by furniture. You do not want to put the radiator underneath the bed, behind the headboard, or behind the couch, because what will happen?
To keep you warm at night.
It will have uneven heat distribution, and also it will block the temperature. So you'll find the bed the couch very hot, but you go outside, it's a little bit further, and it's very cold. So you want the right distribution. So that's for radiators. Do you have any questions about radiators? It's very, very simple. It's very common, and it's the most used appliance to heat a house because it's inexpensive and easy to install. Also, they are
I have one question
easy to make.
about
And actually,
radiators.
some big companies, they have their own machines that make those. If you work for an HVAC company, they have a big machine that will make those radiators as needed. So So if you think about it, it's a very simple design. Just put in the fins, and you can cut those fins and cut them and put them into a tube. It's not that difficult. So most of these pieces of metal are press manufactured. Just put them in a press, sheet of metal, and get printed, and so on. Question?
My question about radiators was on the last calculation, when we divided a milli-inch by 12,000, we got 3.72 feet. Is that 3.72 foot-pounds, because we're saying it's pressure drop, so it's
No,
foot-pounds?
it's just foot. It's a foot of head, and this foot is, you have a good point, it's foot pound, but this is calculated as feet of water. So every foot is the foot height of water.
Do you make that down to, can you get that to pounds per square inch, like
Yes,
your
you could.
gauge reads on your
Yeah.
thing, and you'll know how many pounds per square inch pressure you're gonna lose from that?
Yeah. So for pressure, you can measure pressure using Pascal, using pressure PSI, pound per square inch, and feet of water, inches of mercury.
Feet of water.
That's okay.
It's
now
not
it makes
foot-pounds, it's feet of water.
Feet of water, which is the weight of water acting on 1 square inch of water. So if you look at pressure, that's really a good question, because you need to understand what is pressure. So somebody wants to make things a little bit easy for us. If I imagine this is 1 foot of water, the pressure it exerts in 1 square inch is called 1 foot of water. It's a very easy way to measure pressure, and it's very common in HVAC. If you go to all HVAC equipment, they will give you inches of water, or foot of water, and you can also find inches of mercury. So, mercury. That's all, and most of this is for vacuum. Again, 1 square inch mercury. And you know what is this equivalent to? When we did this pressure, it's the pressure of a column that's 1 inch square from here all the way to the end of the atmosphere. That's the weight of air from here all the way to the end of the atmosphere. That's equivalent to 30 inches of mercury, this much, 30 inches of mercury, equivalent to the weight of the air all the way to the end of the
How much the
atmosphere.
mercury would weigh, equal to?
Yeah, the amount
So
of air from
why
here all
would
the
we
way up.
wanna know the foot of water?
Because at the end, you have to pump water over there, right? So you have to know what is the pump capacity to push water through this pipe to resist this pressure. Otherwise, if the pressure is equal, it might not be able to push through. You want something higher than that to go through. And we've seen that before when the pump is just pumping and working, but nothing is moving, right? It's like when you have a small little tiny car, you try to go uphill, and you floor the gas, but the car is not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It's not enough. So that's what you need to know. Okay. For radiant floor heating, you don't have to remember this at all. It's just for information.
Yeah, it looks difficult.
Looks nice. I like it.
Yes, I like it too.
This tattoo in my back. So this, just to explain to you what's happening in radiation. Radiation is very, very interesting subject. So this is heat loss or heat transfer through radiation. This here is called the Boltzmann constant of radiation. Some scientists came up with a lot of experiments and found this is the constant. It's going to be always there. It's constant. Constant. You don't have to remember that. This here is called the factor of emissivity. And it varies between 0 to 10. Can you have a guess what is that relates to?
Color.
Color. Dark color absorb up to 10. Go to gray, again to reflective color like aluminum, that's 0. So this is the emissivity, how much you will emit. Actually, maybe it's the other way around. Dark color do not emit, and reflective color will reflect everything that goes in it. So that's based on the color, it's based on just the constant. Here, this is the area. The surface area that's emitting that heat. So if we look at this dish here, this is my area.
You got it backwards. The E is the emissivity and the
And
upside down Q is the stiff one.
Yeah. You just see them backwards on the board.
so, huh?
You labeled them backwards on the board, that's all.
It doesn't, it's the same thing. And look, you don't have to worry about that. But this is the Boltzmann, this is the emissivity, E epsilon. There you go. And temperatures, it's the temperature of the hot object to the power of 4th, and temperature of the cold object to the 4th power. So the again, there must be a temperature difference, otherwise there will be no emissivity. Okay, let's not worry about that too much. Here we say delta T, the 4th power, times the area. What I want you to gather from all this is there has to be a temperature difference, and there has to be a good area. If you have a small object that's really hot, the way it emits temperature is going to be very limited because it has a very small area. Bigger object, you can feel the radiation. So if I have this board at temperature of 90, you will feel it because it has a lot of view factor. You see it's going to emit and transmit all these frequencies of heat all the way to you. And if you have those space heaters, they usually look like a dish, try to spread out more rays. Question?
So, I guess the other thing is too, the epsilon, depending on what it is, as the color of the object emitting the heat. So the darker it is, the more heat it emits or
No,
absorbs.
Absorbs.
Okay.
So as you can see, if you have a piece of metal and you heat it, what color does it turn? Orange, red, yellow. If you keep heating it before it melts, it's going to be bright white like the sun. So it's emitting a lot of heat. So the color will be more heat sent to the location. Also, we need to know what is the area that's going to send all those rays. So if you ever have a dish satellite, what is it doing? If you have a dish satellite, looks like that, right? What's in the middle?
That thing.
The receiver. What it's doing is basically it's collecting waves. And those waves are calculated to reflect on this little focus. So if you're in the middle of the desert and you want to get a signal, you're going to have a bigger dish to collect as much signal from the satellite as you can. That's why you see those big dishes. So what I'm trying to explain to you is the area doesn't matter for radiant floor heating. That's why we heat the floor. We can also heat the wall. There are boards you can hang on the wall that actually will heat the room. And you need more area. If you block that area, you block the heat. Simple as that. In the winter, when you have your fireplace, the bigger the fireplace, the more radiation it will have to the room. And sometimes we even have a glass pane in front of it, so nothing will go through, but you still get the heat from the radiation. And you want that view to be unobstructed. Because again, radiation is going through waves. It's not going through convection or conduction, it's just through wave. So, forget about that. So, what do you need to remember from radiant floor heating? Area is important and temperature is important and relevant to each other. So for our floor, we try to heat the floor because it's the biggest area in the house. Can we heat the ceiling?
No.
No. You can, but it's not productive. it's not productive at all. Because heat's going to rise, and it's not very productive to heat the ceiling. Can you heat the wall? Yes, you can. Again, it's a little bit difficult to run water through it. There are something like a painting, like this big board that you can hang, and it's electrical, because you don't want to run water through the wall back and forth. That's so unproductive, considering the weight of the water. Okay, but in some places you can have board that you hang, and it will heat the entire room through radiation. So it's for indoor floor heating, it is very comfortable. If I look at the floor here, and this floor is heated at 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's see.
Picasso.
So I'm gonna have heat coming all the way here at 85, 75, probably here at 65. It's going to radiate us closer and further from the object. It's kind of like the sun, right? If you go further from the sun, just a little bit, it's going to be cooler. That's why we have winter and we have spring, because we're about distance. Even though it's the same radiation, right? So you get closer and further, and this is what happened, is like the bottom will be heated. You want your feet to be warm and your eye level and head will be a little bit cool. So it's the best temperature profile for human comfort. It's very quiet. You don't hear or feel anything. You don't even know it existed, unless you have bubbles in the system. So a perfect match to each heated zone. So each room will be heated individually. Again, you can zone each room and have its own thermostat, its own zone valve. It has a very lower operating temperature between 85 to 95. Again, we can vary this temperature from 85 to 95 based on the tile of the floor. If you have ceramic tile, something solid, it will conduct much better, right? So 85 will be okay. If you have wood or carpet, you might have to increase the temperature to achieve something within 85 in the bottom. So this gives you an idea of the temperature you need to produce. Not that much, right?
Savings, right, on your heat.
Yeah, that will save you a lot in the heat. You don't need much. You don't use the temperature that much. Same with steam and water. With steam, we have to go all the way to 220. With hot water, we go to 180. Now we can go to 85. It's a big investment in the beginning, but if it's done well, it will save you money in the long run. And that can be easily coupled with geothermal or even a small heat pump. So, but again, in terms of construction, it's a little bit on the pricey side. Okay. Then the room is satisfied. All the air is the same temperature, no hot regions or cold regions. It's going to be stratified, so we have layers, and it's going to be all the same. The entire room, there's no cold corner and hot corner. That's one of the advantages. No visible heating units. So probably you'll see these a lot in museums, art galleries, courtrooms, with maybe some convictions. Quiet, again, and there's no visible heating unit, no disruption. Very quiet, no noise coming from the system at all. Water running smoothly, slow velocity, so it does not do a lot of swooshing. It does not stir up the air. Natural convection is not used. It is present, but it's not the main source of heat conduction. It's mostly radiation. It's the only way we will use radiation. Very versatile. Can be used with solar heating panels in some regions because we can absorb a lot of heat from the sun. Geothermal due to low operating temperature. If you have temperature outside 60 and you go to 85, it's only 25 degrees. That's not that much. A heat pump can be useful. Geothermal can be useful. You can also use solar heat panels. You know they have heat panels, solar panels that absorb heat, not only light. But it's not very useful here in New England because we do get a lot of sun all the time.
Question, where would you, in a system like this, would you keep your thermostat in the same place you would for any other system?
Yeah. Yeah, or you can do it for each room by itself. Open and close the rooms out. Very comfortable with the bare floor temperature. That's why you see, maybe you should try that in your project. Just put it in the bathrooms and kitchens. We don't have a lot of space. I want to heat the floor. That'll be very, very comfortable. A lot of people, they hate the feeling of walking in the bathroom and the kitchen barefooted, and it's very cold. So this will warm the floor. It feels really nice. Yeah.
Would the thermostat be set at 65, say at head height, and then you would, if, you know what I mean, like?
Yeah.
Because you, or if you put a sensor in the floor.
No, it should
for
be
85.
No, thermostat should be like eye level. Yeah.
Okay, so you would set it
70,
for 65, and then it would get
Yeah.
warmer down here
Yeah.
and then hotter, okay.
Yeah. Limitation, slow reaction time. System takes a relatively long time to reach desired temperature compared to baseboard radiators or forced hot air. You have to heat the water, it's going to be slow. You have to heat the floor, that takes a lot of time. So probably within an hour or so, the floor is heated completely. And once the floor is heated completely, it will radiate to the room. Furniture blockages such as big tables or thick carpeting can impede the radiation. It's in the way. So you need some kind of exposed floor area. And you can compensate for that by increasing the temperature. If you have carpet, you have added more insulation, right? So you need to heat the water a little bit more. It does not filter or clean the air. If that's your purpose of the heating system, it's not going to do that for you. However, it's very easy to clean. You clean the floor, you have to clean the system. And it's completely sealed. You're not touching it. Once it's done, it's done. Leaks in the system are very dramatic. So, if you have, for some reason, broken into the floor, or the floor got deteriorated, or it's done, if it's not done very properly and start to leak, you can imagine the damage. Over time, it will soak up your entire wall, your entire floor, and it could be an issue. And sometimes when the system leaks, people just give up on it, they mothball it, and they put another system, because it's just too expensive to fix. You have to cut the entire floor, fit the system, test it, so it's really not that productive. Building material has to be tolerant of heat and able to handle the fluctuation of temperature. So whoever installs, it's not a system that you just install out of the whim, you have to plan for it. Because again, whatever cement you put on it, support has to be compatible with the material. Also, if you're putting some glued carpeting or ceramic tiles, you have to know that this adhesive can stand temperature between 85 and 95. Otherwise, you will slowly cook that carpet. So, system specification. For it, system specification require the following. First of all, we need a header manifold to distribute hot water to each heating loop. So it looks a little bit like having a control panel for electricity. You have a header that sends tubes for each room, each loop by itself for hot water, and one return. So it's like coming hot, neutral. Same way you did with electricity. Big control panel coming out of the boiler, hot water going out, cold water coming in for each loop by itself. Each room or zone has to have its own loop and control. So, for example, in here, if I were to have a loop in here, this is my boiler. I have a pipe going all the way here. If I were to have another one here. So, here, footer here for the cold water. And again, you can see how this is very important to design very well, because what if you design a system, you turn it on, you put it in the summertime, winter time comes, and the client or whoever using the house turn on the heat and there's no heat coming. They'll be super frustrated after paying like 20,000 for the system, but it's not functioning very well. So if you were to install that, go with somebody with experience, who know the proper spacing between the tubes, and the water temperature, and the tolerance for the pipe, and how much does it take. And this one of the things that you do want to go very cheap on, because again, leaks are very problematic. I've seen people doing PEX tubes for that. I personally feel PEX tubes are good, but they have not been in the field for a long time. Meanwhile, we have copper tubing that's been there for 40 years. I'll trust something that's been for 40 years. It is a PEX tube, and their PEX tube has been found to sag after a while, they deteriorate, and the connection get loose. So again, that's something you have to think about, and it comes with experience. The heat supply to each zone depends on tube size. How big do you want the tube? Why would that matter?
Bigger tube means more heat.
This is my tube. This is my surface area. More surface area, more heat. What is the area here for this tube? This is the, no, hold on, it's wrong. 2 pi r, which is the circumference times the length. That'll give you the area. So the bigger the radius, the bigger the heat, the surface area, and the bigger is the heat transfer. Think about it as a concept, don't think about the numbers. Okay, bigger tube, bigger surface area, more heat I will radiate, or I can increase the temperature. So it does depend on the tube size, depends on tube length, longer pipe, more surface area, tube spacing, how far they are from each other. If I want to get more surface area, I'm going to have it longer and have less spacing. Filling between the tubes. A lot of time you don't want to leave that unfilled, so it's filled with gravel, sometimes it's filled with cement, sometimes it's filled with some kind of filling material, and you can leave it empty as well, but that will reduce the efficiency of the system. The system has to be pressure tested for a long time. You pressurize it, you leave it and look for leaks, and they put a dye. Again, a drop per minute is a lot. Over 3 months, that's a lot. So we don't want that. The installation has to be coordinated with the construction contractors. So again, it's something you have to put in while you're building a new house, because you want to coordinate with the people who's doing the flooring, placing the furniture, electrical. Also, I think it will change the electrical code for the conduit to be waterproof, because you don't want to have water mixing with your conduit delivering electricity to your panel. For calculation, I will save that for the next class. And basically it will be similar to the other things, but it's a little more involved, and it's good to have this background. Okay?